Well, good evening, everyone. So we're going to look at commas and semicolons, and really, I want you to expect some basics here, and just to get a little firmer grasp on when it's really required, actually, that you use a comma for grammatical clarity and clarity in meaning. So let me get started by focusing on some very common usages and required usages for commas. Alright, so the first usage of a comma deals with the fanboys. Some of you may have heard of these before, but the words are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And you use a comma when it's main clause, comma, conjunction, which are one of these. The fanboys are conjunctions, okay? And followed then by another main clause, okay? So if you have these elements here followed by a conjunction, one of these ones, then you'll have a necessary comma placed before the conjunction. Many of you do these, but I just want to remind you, as we are familiar now with the main clause, dependent clause distinction. Apposition would be if I said something like, Mr. Reed, one of OSHA's tenth grade teachers is a big nerd. Okay. This item here, apposition, is in apposition to Mr. Reed, which basically means that it's restating it. Okay, it's redefining it, and you'll have to use a comma there. It's also really effective, an effective way to fit a lot of information into a single sentence. Because you don't have to have a new sentence explaining that I'm a 10th grade teacher at OSHA. You're just able to say it in apposition following the introduction of my name. Lists you guys are very clear with already. There are some kind of distinctions about whether or not you would say like 1, 2, comma, and 3, or is it just 1, 2, and 3? Notice no comma here. I won't split hairs. I'll let either go. I'm not going to take a side on this stupid issue. Okay? It's like a dumb argument. The interruption of thought elements, I want to give its own slide, because it relates to the main clauses or phrases connection here, and I want to show how those are set off in various sentences. Alright, so these are some of the specific cases where there's an interruption of thought as it's described. The first one here should be very familiar to you, before the main clause. So this would be the main clause here. I'll underline it twice. And then this information precedes it. We do set it off here with a comma, and I described it in previous videos and in class as basically letting your reader know, now my sentence is beginning. This is another one which I only see a few people use, as it sometimes takes confidence, but I want us all to be very comfortable with this form as well. I show an example here when it says, this town, when it was first established in the 17th century, only had one building built of clay and straw. Now this is an interrupting thought, primarily just describing when, as it says here, when it was made. And so this, by the way, is a clause, a dependent clause. This renders it dependent because if it were not there, I could say it was first established in the 17th century, and that would be a complete thought, but this when does make it dependent. So you can put that in the middle of a sentence and have it be quite effective. If you noticed, this would be the subject, well, really town, okay, but I'm talking about this town, so I am kind of figuratively pointing here, and then had here. Okay, so this town had, and if you notice, it's between these two things, between the subject and a verb. That's how it functions. And you need commas here to separate that, because these elements here, let me highlight them in blue. These are the essential parts of your sentence. Like, this is the main sentence. This town only had one building built of clay and straw. That's the sentence. This other stuff, which I'll circle here, all of this is, sorry, I went into the only. This is all interruption of thought, okay? Dependent clause, not necessary. This is a second form, though, that I would like us to look at, and namely, it is between verb and object. Object is like what ran, or in this case, what had, he had what. Do you get what I mean? What would be the unusual faculty for analyzing his own emotions. So notice, if I were to circle them, subject, verb, and now our interrupting information falls in between here. That is our object, and our interrupting information, as you can very well see, is right here, even at this early age. Okay? The skill here, I suppose, is just really finding an idea that would require it. But in terms of punctuation, I kind of written over it, but you set these off with commas, and that's essential. Okay? One of the areas that I want to make a final comment on is what's known as a comma splice. And a comma splice is a place where you separate two main clauses and there's no conjunction. Conjunction, where are you? I need you, conjunction, please. And so you're basically using your comma as you would a period or a semicolon, and that's grammatically incorrect. You need a conjunction of some kind, or just simply make them two sentences, as you might want to do. So a comma splice is a comma that's trying to be a period. Comma, comma, you are not a period. All right? You are not a period. I'm going to put that in a speech bubble. Okay? That's what a comma splice is. I'll use that. I promise you. You can properly use commas in the ways that I've described, very common ways. There are others, there are exceptions. I don't want to cover those because I want it to be clear, but these are the essential ways where you have to use them. I know I'm getting close to my time limit. So semicolons, same rules as a period, grammatically. Okay? It sets off and concludes main clauses. If you use a semicolon, you have to have a main clause on both sides. The only reason why you use a semicolon is to essentially establish a relationship, okay, between them. And you're basically saying that this sentence is so closely related to this sentence, I want to show it. And frequently, you use conjunctive adverbs to express this connection. So I would say something like, I enjoy having a dog, however, they can be quite annoying at times. Okay? That's showing a kind of contrast there. I'm qualifying my thoughts. But in general, you guys, if you want to practice with semicolons, it takes practice, I think physical practice, but I want you to internalize these two things. I mean, really, really realize that in terms of grammatical rules and appropriateness of use, semicolons have the same grammatical rules as a period. That's a really just clear, simple way of understanding it. And another reminder for you, a check, if you've used it correctly, is that if there's a main clause on both sides, namely a complete sentence or a complete thought on both sides of it, you won't run into trouble. Okay? Use them sparingly. And there are cases that involve lists and semicolons, but those are so rare, I'm not going to cover it in this video. But if you want to see it in class, you let me know, all right? So let's end it there, and I'll see you on Thursday.